Men, it's all come down to this. We're here tonight to make history and change the world. We're gonna take out the Holy Lord Phoenix and bring down the Holy Nation. They're weakened and distracted by the Shek army who are fighting at their gates as we speak. Even so, Blister Hill is still packed with Holy Nation soldiers, and hitting them head on would surely lead to our defeat. We're not here to fight every last soldier to the death. No, our goal is to sever the Holy Nation's head, and as a result, they will crumble. I'll lead a strike force and sneak through the north gate while the guards are distracted by the Shek army. I've been to Blister Hill before and I know where the Holy Lord Phoenix resides. We'll ambush him in his own quarters where they'll least suspect it. Again, our objective is the Phoenix. If we take him, we leave. If things go south, Fravatar will lead the charge and the rest of you will join me. We cannot fail. If we do, all is lost. If we succeed, we'll do what damage we can and get out of there with the Phoenix. Does everyone understand? I don't know what you just said, Agnew, but I definitely agree with you. It's time for us to go. I hope luck's on our side tonight. We'll need it. After his speech, Rook immediately turned to Mack and handed him his falling sun and told him to hold on to it for him. Mack was confused and asked what he was doing. Rook simply assured him that he'd be fine without his trusty weapon. With what he planned to do, he wouldn't need it. It was time to go. The men moved swiftly around the perimeter of Blister Hill using the darkness to hide from any Holy Nation guards. The Shek army was locked in combat at the back entrance, which caused a perfect distraction for Rook to sneak through undetected. The rest of the men remained hidden outside while Rook dodged past any patrolling guards inside the wall. He managed to sneak in just fine. His small group of mercenaries were sneaking in too, but they were lagging behind. Rook surveyed the throne room and found the Phoenix. To his surprise, he and all of his men were laying in bed, sleeping while the rest of his forces were outside dying to protect him. Rook scoffed in disgust. The Phoenix was being careless and his guard was down. This was Rook's chance to put an end to him. He snuck up to the bed beside the Phoenix. One of his guards got up and walked right past Rook. He froze as the soldier yawned and was so groggy from his sleep that he continued on his way without even realizing he was there. Rook inspected the Phoenix's gear and held his breath as he removed his weapon as quietly as he could and disarmed him. Next, he unstrapped his chest plate as he slept soundly. Rook caught it as it slipped off him and placed it in his bag. The mighty Holy Lord Phoenix wouldn't be much of a threat without a weapon or armor. Next, Rook tried to take out as many men as he could silently. The first paladin was knocked out cold, and as his body collapsed to the floor, the men noticed him and sprung into action. Rook threw the paladin's weapon on the ground and raised his guard. The Holy Lord Phoenix screamed and charged at Rook, not even realizing his weapon and armor were missing. It was too late though. He already engaged with Rook and it only took 3 blows with his katana and the Phoenix collapsed. This was almost too perfect, Rook thought to himself as he scooped up the Phoenix's limp body. Of course, at this point, every soldier in the throne room was closing in on them. Rook and the mercenaries were locked fiercely in combat, doing what they could to stand their ground. Sounds of clashing steel filled the hall as the men locked blades. As soon as they heard the commotion, the rest of Rook's men charged through the gate, past the soldiers outside and into the throne room. It was complete chaos. The paladins were caught off guard and it showed while they fought Rook's army. They were sloppy. Blister Hill was a disaster. Their men were focused on the Shek's forces fighting at the gates and weren't expecting an attack from within. There was mass confusion as the 7 and their mercenaries were cleaning up the Phoenix's personal guard. Rook's men were focused. In one fell swoop, the Phoenix was taken out, which was the best case scenario, and now they were able to inflict a massive blow to a large portion of their forces while they were there. They stuck together and fought in front of the empty throne, which was fitting due to their current circumstances. Rook and the others danced back and forth with the paladins who challenged them. Their time dedicated to training paid off as they were able to stand their ground. Having mercenaries there to buffer their force certainly helped too. Rook remained vigilant while he held onto the Phoenix. He had to be careful not to lose him amidst the fighting. He somehow managed to get through all this combat while taking minimal damage, so he wasn't concerned at the moment. At this point, most of the paladins inside the throne room were taken out and the few others standing were getting overwhelmed. As the others fell, Rook's men converged on the last man standing who held his ground firmly, even while being completely surrounded. He was the protector of the flame, a very strong fighter, but he failed at his duties. You could see the panic in his eyes as he frantically tried to fend off Rook's men and rescue the Phoenix, but there wasn't anything he could do now. Their guard was down and Rook capitalized on it. The protector of the flame couldn't save the Phoenix now. He was, however, too strong for them to take out. The sun continued to rise and more Holy Nation men were alert and storming into the throne room. At this point, the 7 were heavily wounded and they knew they overstayed their visit. Rook called out for the retreat and the men withdrew from the throne room. As Rook was leaving past the gate with the Phoenix, he felt a jolt of pain in his leg as a harpoon bolt struck him. It wasn't enough to incapacitate him or cause him to drop his hostage, but he couldn't move quickly now either. As they rounded the corner of the wall outside of the mounted turret's views, they turned to fight off the paladins that were trying to stop them from escaping. Their enemies fell, but they realized that not everyone made it out safely. They quickly turned and ran back into Blister Hill. Rockus ran over and scooped up Mack while the rest of the 7 fought at the gate, causing a distraction until they could all escape together. They made enough of a clearing by the gate, and the men took this opportunity to escape together. Fravatar was the last one out, and he was taking a beating until they got back outside and around the corner where they were in the clear. They were so close to escaping, but another group of paladins chased after the men. Rook fled while the rest of the 7 held the line, making sure he'd be able to successfully escape with the Phoenix. The other 7 were wounded and tired. Mack and Wansnot were both unconscious, but this didn't stop them. This was the final stretch of their surprise attack. They couldn't fail now. As more reinforcements from Blister Hill arrived, they knew it was time to retreat. Rook got enough distance between Blister Hill and himself with the Phoenix. The rest of the men finally caught up with Rook, who was safely hidden away from the chaos. There were still a few paladins that chased them this far. The 7 used what strength that they had left to surround the paladins. Rook gave them credit. They were persistent, but it wasn't enough for the men to bring the 7 down. They teamed up and overwhelmed the paladins. They could see the defeat in the eyes of the last man standing. He was overwhelmed and collapsed like the others. It was done. They did it. They captured the Holy Lord Phoenix. But there was no time to waste. They immediately tended to their wounds and took one last moment to bask in their victory. Blister Hill was still being attacked by the Shek and any remaining mercenaries that didn't escape, but their part to play here was finished. They left Blister Hill towards the hub. Rook was thankful that all 7 of them were able to make it out in one piece. He also knew that they wouldn't have been able to escape successfully if it weren't for their hired mercenaries. Their sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. As they were traveling south, they ran through a Shek patrol fighting off a group of Kral's Chosen. They saw Rook passing with his men and the Phoenix, and a handful of them broke off and chased after them. The 7 heard them berate Rook, calling him a flat skin and a coward. They continued moving until one of them called out Rook, challenging him to prove his worth. Rook ordered the men to stop. Most days he would ignore such a petty challenge, but not today. He told the men to stand their ground. Rook turned and charged into a group of Kral's Chosen. He blocked their first attack and swung the Meitu grade cross in a wide arc that severely wounded all 4 of the Shek. While they were recovering from the first blow, Rook continued to press hard on them. He could see the regret in their faces as the second fighter dropped. One of them landed a blow on Rook while his back was turned, and he quickly retaliated. He got hit one last time before dropping the last of the Kral's Chosen. He took them on with one hand while carrying the Phoenix, and they were only able to land 2 hits on him. Maybe they'll think twice before challenging him again, he thought to himself. Rook grouped back up and ordered the men to continue moving. They made it back to the hub in no time and passed through the gate into the city. They were out of Holy Nation territory now. Their mission was a great success, and now the men could rest and recover. Rook turned to them and told them to focus on healing their wounds and then return home. He was going to deal with the Phoenix and meet them back at New Raleigh. He bid them farewell and began traveling towards Admag, the capital of the Shek. They were a critical ally in this war, and Rook's men wouldn't have been able to do it without their help. It only seemed right that he would deliver the Phoenix to them and let the Shek decide his fate. He arrived that night. He was stopped at the front gate. The guards were in awe of Rook's hostage. He was told to meet with the stone golem in their headquarters. The way they spoke to him completely changed. There was a new level of respect in their voices. Rook thanked them and walked into the city. He felt a sense of accomplishment that he'd never felt before, but he was also very tired. It would all be over soon now, he thought to himself. As he walked into the headquarters, someone told Rook to come over and speak with him. His name was Bayan, and he looked over Rook's captive in disbelief. Rook explained that this accomplishment couldn't have been done without their aid, and he handed the Phoenix over to him. Bayan tossed the Phoenix into the cage and he thanked Rook. He told him to speak with Asada about this, and the Shek officially became allies with Rook. Holy Lord Phoenix just sat in his cell, silently, while glaring at Rook. Rook just smiled and walked away. He'd deal with him later. He found Asada at the other side of the building and spoke with her. She repeated Bayan's words of gratitude and thanks. She granted him the title of the Battleborn, and all the Shek cheered for their victory. Rook smiled. He was still in a state of disbelief himself, and while this was a massive blow to the Holy Nation and the battle at Blister Hill was won, the war wasn't over yet. Asada was so shocked by having the Phoenix captive, she felt faint and had to lay down for a moment. When she got back up, she presented her daughter to Rook, Seto. She asked that he would take her in and train her as his own soldier. Rook graciously accepted her offer, and Seto approached Rook. Her weapon was a poorly crafted plank. For now, Rook gave her the Phoenix's Meito-grade cross to equip. Rook welcomed her to the team and told her that they had to return to New Raleigh where the rest of the men were waiting. They arrived, and for now, Seto was asked to stay and help defend New Raleigh. As for the 7, they recruited Yellow Horse to join the fight, and Rook explained that even though the Holy Nation's strongest fortification have been destroyed, they still had other strongholds that they needed to liberate. They left the gates of New Raleigh again, prepared to finish what they started and clean up the remains of the Holy Nation, starting with Rebirth. Now that the Phoenix was taken out, Blister Hill would fall and they could focus on the destruction of what remained of the Holy Nation until they had nothing left standing. With Yellow Horse as part of their group, they were no longer the 7. They were now referring to themselves as the Liberators, with the goal of freeing those who have been oppressed by the Holy Nation. They arrived outside of Rebirth in no time, and they stopped to take a moment and scout the area. To Rook's surprise, the gate wasn't guarded by Holy Nation men, but the Flotsam ninjas. Word travels fast, and they must have heard about the Phoenix falling, and they attacked while they were at their weakest. Rook had the men wait while he approached Rebirth to see what happened for himself. He stopped at the gate and the men let him through. Rook ran over the bridge and took in the view. It was so long ago when Rook last stepped foot in Rebirth, and at the time, it was full of slaves in despair. Now it was in ruins and no Holy Nation man could be found. The slaves were offered freedom or they could join the Flotsam ninjas. Rook was glad to see Rebirth in ruins, and he didn't even have to help. When he returned to the others, he was given bad news. Mack got word that their home was being invaded by a Shek challenge. The large group of Kral's Chosen demanded that Rook face them or they would lay waste to their home. The Liberators immediately left and returned back to New Raleigh. When they arrived, Rook saw the large Shek force that was waiting for him. Angry by their threat to his people, Rook charged headfirst into their group and initiated the fighting. He danced around them, dealing massive damage with every swing and doing his best to block their attacks. Some of the Sheks split off to the rest of the Liberators who engaged with them after Rook began fighting. They greatly outnumbered the Liberators, but Rook's men greatly outmatched the Shek fighters. Rook had the attention of a large group while the rest of the men teamed up and cleaned up the others. The Kral's Chosen were being massacred. Rook's men didn't let up. There was blood and corpses all over their town, but they didn't stop until every last one of them were taken out. Even the others were eager to help defend New Raleigh. They didn't have the training and skills as the Liberators, but they did their best to take out any stragglers. They worked together and slowly beat down 2 of the Shek enemies themselves. It wasn't much, but they wanted to do their part and help however they could. Shortly after the fighting began, they were wiped out and the few Shek that survived fled New Raleigh while Rook's men were barely hurt. They rested up that evening and the Liberators left for their next target, Arcos Trap. The only major fortifications that remained were Arcos Trap, Okrand's Shield, and Okrand Fist. If they were to destroy those final strongholds, the Holy Nation would be no more. Later that day, they arrived outside of Arcos Trap. It looked like they were still holed up here and their defenses were solid. They moved close to a large boulder that would provide them enough cover while they devised a plan of attack. Well, that was until another pesky Kral's Chosen charged in on the men and attacked them. And these Shek fanatics were being a pain in the butt. He was brought down immediately, but it caused enough of a ruckus to draw the attention of the Holy Nation men on them. They alerted the guards and 2 paladins pursued them. This also drew in the rest of the Kral's Chosen patrol that joined in on the fighting. It was an all-out brawl at this point, and more Holy Nation soldiers were charging in to catch the Liberators off guard. Rook's men were too strong though. They were able to take on the Shek patrol and the Holy Nation soldiers at the same time, even while they sent more reinforcements. They finished the fighting outside of Arcos Trap, and Rook knew that they had to take out the mounted harpoon turrets as quickly as possible if they were to take out this stronghold. Rook was caught outside of the wall by a few men and he got disoriented. He regained his bearings as Wands not charged past him, straight towards the mounted soldiers. Rook followed after him and they focused on the men mounting the turrets while the rest of the Liberators poured in to help. The fighting converged on the wall where the Holy Nation desperately tried to hold their position with the turrets while the Liberators fought to take them out. The Paladins couldn't hold against their attack though. As they were cleaning up the men, Mack made his way towards one of the turrets to use against them. The last Paladin fell on the wall and Rook ordered the men to spread out and search the buildings. Mack would stand guard with the turret while they cleared up whatever was left here. There was just one soldier inside one of the barracks. He charged at Rook and they locked blades. Unfortunately for him, the rest of the Liberators showed up and swarmed him, not that Rook necessarily needed the help. They heard Mack fire a harpoon shot outside and immediately rushed to his aid. Before they got back to him, a soldier knocked him unconscious. More wounded men were returning to defend their base. They were simply no match for the Liberators though, and after some time, all but one man was killed off. They chased him down and he dropped like a fly. Rain began pouring over them, cooling the men off from the battle they just won. They looked over Arcos Trap and found it to be completely rid of any Holy Nation presence. 1 down, 2 more to go. They immediately moved towards their next target, Okrand's Shield. They traveled through the mountainous terrain, and as they got close, they realized this fortress was already overthrown by the Shek army as well. Many of the structures were in shambles, but there were still some buildings that were being used by the Shek. Rook led the men into a nearby barracks where they could rest from the fighting at Arcos Trap. With Okrand's Shield already being liberated from the hands of the enemy, the final target would be Okrand's Fist. This was the last remaining stronghold that the Holy Nation held, and Rook was about to send his men there and finally defeat the Holy Nation in its entirety once and for all. The men slowly approached Okrand's Fist from the hills above, and they saw that it was already in ruins. Something didn't seem right though. They didn't see flotsam ninjas or Shek guards occupying it. Instead, they had a cruel realization that everyone was taking advantage of the fall of the Holy Nation, including the cannibals. The Holy Nation must have helped keep them at bay, but now they were flowing out of the cannibal plains into the mainland. Rook knew they had to stop this. He led the charge into the ruins of Okrand's Fist and attacked a large group of cannibals that surrounded him. There were so many of them that Rook had trouble blocking all of their attacks. It didn't matter though. They were weak, and he shrugged off the hits that landed on him. Every swing of his falling sun took down 2 or more of them at a time. Once he broke free from their swarm, he really started laying into them. The rest of the Liberators were trying to come help Rook, but they were caught fighting off more cannibals outside of the fallen city's gates. Rook kept his cool though and was quickly mowing through the unarmored men like butter. The rest of the men eventually cleared the threat outside of the gate and came in to help Rook. They couldn't withstand the might of Rook's men, and their armor was too powerful to really hurt them either. The only strength the cannibals had was their vast number of men being able to swarm their victims. Unfortunately for them, they weren't able to swarm Rook's men. After the main group of the enemy was killed off, Rook ordered them to find any remaining cannibals and clean them up. There were still lots of men left, but they were dropping like flies all around the Liberators. It was a massacre. Rook was amazed that they were able to take over Okrand's Fist to begin with, but he knew the Holy Nation was so weakened at this point that they couldn't even defend themselves from the cannibals. After they cleared the cannibal threat around them, Rook realized that the last Holy Nation fortress was destroyed. This meant that the Holy Nation fell. They were no more. But there wasn't any time to celebrate. A new threat was in front of them, and they had to stop it before it was too big of a problem. Rook was going to take the men to the cannibal plains and kill off any threat to the newly freed land. They set their way towards a marked cannibal village first. Rook was familiar with this land, and he scouted ahead of the other men. He could hold his own at this point and wasn't worried to be left alone in the cannibal plains. He ran as fast as he could, and he made it to the first village in no time. As he got closer, he realized that there were no cannibals in sight. There were lots of wounded men trapped in cages though, waiting to be served as dinner. Rook used this opportunity to free anyone that was still alive and able to escape on their own. It took some time, but once he freed as many men as he could, he saw his first cannibal patrol wandering near the village. In fact, a second group was there too. Rook thought he would brush up on his assassination skills and snuck behind the first patrol. It was knocking them out left and right, and they had no idea. It was almost too easy. In fact, Rook grew tired of taking them down one by one like that and finally stood up and drew his sword. The remainder of the group that wasn't already taken down turned and closed in on Rook. He flew into his first victim, and he dropped as the mighty falling sun landed on him. Rook quickly moved to the others, and they collapsed to the ground when his falling sun crushed them. After spending so much time fighting Holy Nation paladins, it almost didn't seem fair to go against the primitive cannibals. He was finishing off the first group when the second patrol spotted Rook and attacked him too. They were scrawny, tiny little things that were more of a nuisance than a threat to Rook, but he had to make sure he didn't get careless and let his guard down. As he fought, he reflected on the past few days. Once they fought back the cannibal threat from spreading outside of their plains, his mission he set out to accomplish so long ago would finally be realized. A part of him felt very satisfied that the evil Phoenix and his Holy Nation were destroyed, and he had a major part to play in this destruction, but at the same time, he felt sad. There were things that Rook did that he wasn't proud of. He killed countless enemies, even murdering some. He peddled massive supplies of drugs into neighboring cities to fund his cause, and most of the mercenaries that joined the Seven to capture the Phoenix never returned. He kept telling himself that he did all this for the greater good, but now there's a threat of a cannibal outbreak into their land. He snapped back into the moment and realized that they wouldn't let the cannibals spread beyond their homelands. He would make sure of it. But Rook knew that he got his hands dirty, and he had to do it in order to take out a force as powerful as the Holy Nation. For now, he focused on finishing this one last mission, and then he could return home with the others and help keep the peace in the land and make up for what he's done in the past. It wouldn't be in vain. More cannibal patrols found Rook and charged at him. He fought them with ease until his backup finally arrived. With the others at his side, things would be even easier. They helped clean up the few remaining cannibals, but they were mostly just met with Rook and a bloodied pile of corpses at his feet. The last cannibal fell, and before they had a moment to breathe, a shrieking bandit approached Rockius and he started screeching at him. Rockius wasn't really sure how to respond, so he just screeched back. He seemed to be offended by this, and the group of bandits attacked the men, even though they stood no chance against them. The Liberators didn't want to fight them, but they wouldn't let up, so they continued to defend themselves. What remained after the fighting was a bloodied mess of cannibals and bandits. As rain began falling on them again, Rook couldn't help but to remember when an amazing warrior by the name of Jinsei saved him while killing off handfuls of cannibals. which ultimately led to Rook being able to capture the cannibal Grand Wizard, claim a huge bounty from the Holy Nation, and learned about Hot Dog's fate. That's what initially planted the seed of hate against the Holy Nation. It wasn't until they attacked him because of his rescued slave Tao that things became violent with them though. In a funny way, if it wasn't for that fateful night at the cannibal capital so long ago, and if Jinsei hadn't have been there, the war against the Holy Nation might not have ever happened. Rook came back into the moment with his men. He had to stop reminiscing and lead the liberators. And speaking of the cannibal capital, that was their next target. Rook told them to get there as quickly as they could, but he was going to scout ahead. He arrived in no time and found another group of cannibals. He didn't want to waste any time and charged in at them. These guys were a little more competent than the patrols he was fighting earlier. He had to keep his guard up until the others arrived. Of course, right then, Rook turned and he saw the rest of his men running into the fight. Together, they mowed through the cannibals like they were nothing. Rook saw another prisoner tied to a pole. He went to free him and realized that the threat of the cannibals was stopped, at least for now. He would have to speak with the flotsam ninjas about doing a better job with securing the borders moving forward. He told the men that it was finished. They were going to finally return home. It was a quiet, somber journey back to New Raleigh. When they got back home, Rook told the others to prepare one of their buildings for a gathering. They would celebrate their victory together that evening. But first, Rook had one last thing he wanted to do before he could consider his work finished, and he would return to New Raleigh once his task was completed. He immediately left towards Admag. Rook wanted to personally deliver a message to the Holy Lord Phoenix himself. As he traveled there, he thought of his best friend that he lost so long ago and what things might have been like if the Holy Nation didn't take his life before he arrived at the hub. It didn't matter though. They did take his life and the Holy Nation paid for what they've done. It wasn't just about vengeance though. It never was. It was about justice, and the death of Hot Dog only helped Rook to see them for what they truly were. Hateful tyrants that used their fanatic religion and power as a basis to oppress the weak. It was a long and tiring journey, but with the help of the Shek and the flotsam ninjas, the Holy Nation was no more. Holy Lord Phoenix lost.
You. Have you come here to mock me, Dark One? You think these monsters can keep me in this cage? My men will come and get me. Okrand will smite you.
Shut up. Nobody's coming to rescue you. You know, I never thought I'd find us in this situation, talking one-on-one like this. I came here because I wanted to be the one to tell you. I wanted to see the look on your face when you found out that the Holy Nation's gone. Every single one of your fortresses have fallen. Any paladin left in the aftermath of what we've done will either turn away from you or be hunted down like dogs. Everything that you've built has been eradicated. A lot of people wanted me to put you on a peeler and let you suffer, but that wouldn't do enough justice, would it? Instead, I decided to hand you over to the people that you hate, where you'll live out the rest of your miserable life rotting in the cells surrounded by your enemy. The Holy Nation's finished, Lord Phoenix. Your legacy is over.
How dare you, you monster! Don't walk away from me! You think they can keep me locked up in here? Okrand will free me and I'll deliver his wrath to you. Do you hear me, Dark One? Mark my words. This isn't over.
Rook thought he would feel satisfied delivering this final blow, but all he felt in the moment was pity. But that feeling slowly lifted as he walked away back towards his home at New Raleigh. After all, this was the beginning of a new world that he helped pave the way for. One where they would fight with their newly founded allies for justice and protection for all. While he took his time walking home, Rook thought about his journey that led him to this point. Did he do the right thing? The Holy Nation was cruel and abused their power. They were oppressive and needed to be stopped. But at what cost? Rook dirtied his hands and the hands of his men in the promise of creating a better world by bringing the Holy Nation down. Countless men, both innocent and guilty, died by Rook's falling son. A long time ago, he told Hot Dog that he wanted to make a name for himself and make a difference in this world. He continued walking as he wrestled with his thoughts until he realized that he would continue growing New Raleigh and offer food and refuge to anyone who sought it. Rook was going to lead them to help protect the weak and try his best to make the world a better place. But first things first. They were going to feast that night and celebrate their victory together, and hope for better days to come. This concludes the story of how Rook started with nothing, and with the help from his newfounded friends and a lot of luck, he rose to power and brought down the Holy Lord Phoenix and the Holy Nation. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this series as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. It was a long journey, but it sure was fun too, wasn't it? If you liked this series, please consider subscribing to the channel because I'll continue doing narrative videos and series like this in the future. I also have a completed RimWorld narrative series that you might enjoy, so if you haven't checked it out yet, please do. If you'd like to support the channel even more, please consider becoming a patron or a YouTube member, which gives you perks like early viewing for my videos, access to a patron-only modded Minecraft server, and more. I also want to shout out my newest patrons, Bo Baker, Gear Primo, College Wi-Fi, Pisal Tagpunit, and Bren Tenkage. Thank you guys so much for your support. I really appreciate it. I also want to thank all my patrons who are helping support the channel so that I can one day make this a full-time job and share more narrative stories like this much more regularly. Thanks guys, I really appreciate you. And as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, have a good one.
Ah, there he is. Cheers, Rook.
Thank you everyone. I just wanted to spend this night celebrating our victory together. We've all earned a night off.
Rook, I just wanted to thank you for taking us all in. I think I speak for everyone here when I say that you've made this world a better place. And I, for one, am damn proud to have fought with you during all this.
What do you plan on doing now, Rook? The Holy Nation was a scourge to many. Now that they're gone, we can live more peacefully. It's finally over.
They weren't just a scourge, they were a symptom.
A symptom? What do you mean?
The Holy Nation, they were merely a symptom of a much bigger problem. You know, I was thinking a lot about this on my way back here. Where do you think they got most of their slaves? How do you think my best friend became a slave? They didn't capture them, they bought them from the slavers in the East. The Holy Nation oppressed people in this region, I know this, but slavery is still running rampant in the United Cities. I told my best friend once that I wanted to make this world a better place, and I still intend on doing that. But the Holy Nation was merely just a symptom of that problem. The Bugmaster's still out there, amassing an army of skin spiders and planning to eventually march them across the entire continent to the Mad Cat Lawn. Out in the east, Reavers are still murdering and pillaging anything in their path. The Skin Bandits are capturing and torturing any humans they can get their hands on. And most importantly, the mighty Emperor Tengu and all the United Cities are still flourishing from their slave trade while the nobles abuse their systems and get away with anything they want. I now know that as long as the United Cities stand, I cannot put my sword down. What I'm trying to say is, it isn't over, Tal. This is just the beginning.